All right, we are 1 minute after, and in the spirit of getting the conversation moving, I'm going to just go ahead and make some announcements, some housekeeping items, and then we'll be well on our way through the conversation as people still continue to join. For you West Coasters, we appreciate you joining. So good morning to you, and for everybody here on the East Coast, good afternoon to you. Thanks for making us a part of your day, whether that's morning or afternoon. Just a couple things, just so you know, we do want this to be interactive, and we want it to be a conversation. So a couple things throughout the conversation today. I'm going to throw out a couple polling questions, of which it'd be really awesome if you guys could all jump in and help us with those. So I'm going to have 3 of those along the way, and then we'll also, if I can understand how to operate all things digital these days, I'll be sharing those with you all as well. So also, all the lines are muted. So if you do have questions that you think of, let's go ahead and throw those out there. Throw those in the Q&A in the Q&A section. Justin and Steve are going to help me administer those, but we're going to try to address those along the way. And then at the very end, we're also going to have a Q&A session if time permits. So also, just so everybody knows, we are going to email a copy of the link, the recorded video and presentation out to everybody. So give us a day or two to get that out to everyone, and we'll have that hopefully in your inboxes by, say, Monday, tops or so. Also, at the end of this, when I shut the webinar down, everybody is going to be emailed a link, and it's a survey, so we appreciate everybody's feedback. And this session is different, but very similar to others that we've done in the past. It's similar in some of the messages and some of the ways in which we articulate things. However, it's different in the fact that we've brought in prospects, prospective resellers, just as well as we have a lot of our partners on here. So with that being said, regardless whether you're a partner or a prospective partner, we do value your feedback, how we can get better. So please be on the lookout for that. So with that being said, we're going to kick things off. And in the spirit of us having some prospective partners on here, some of you know us very well, and you've worked with us over the years, and there's several on here who are new to Green Cloud. So with that being said, just a real quick overview. As everybody knows, we do business only through our reseller partners. So managed service companies, VARs, you all are our sales strategy per se. It's one of our biggest value propositions, and we're constantly asked what makes you different. And that's simply put, we sell through you all. You control your clients, the relationships, and hence we support you. So we are supporting you from a sales, a strategy, migration services, as well as post-implementation support. But it's very critical that everybody knows what exactly it is that we do here. So we're not generalists of many. We would like to be seen as the experts of a very few things that we do in the cloud. And that list is pretty short, but it's pretty robust at the same time. So we offer infrastructure as a service. For those of you who do or do not know, we offer multi-tenancy as well as private host options. We also offer disaster recovery solutions that are powered by different flavors of software, whether that was Veeam, VMware, or Zerto. Depending on your client's needs, we can help you get to what success looks like, depending on what your disaster recovery needs are. We're also a backup as a service repository. So for offsite backups, we're a good go-to for that. We also offer desktop as a service, as well as a whole host of security solutions. Now, the security solutions are meant and intended to be consumed by our partners for their end users. And that looks like managed firewall, managed email security, managed SIEM, outsourced SOC, managed EDR. However, you can wrap those around your cloud solutions. You can also put those in any of your clients for your on-premise needs too. So it's very robust, and regardless of the compliance issues that you're potentially faced with, we can help you back into that. So that's just a real high level what we do, and let's really get to the meat and potatoes of why we're here today. So what brought us here today is obviously we're trying to help people navigate the pathway to becoming secure. And with that being said, in today's age, there are a lot of tool sets, needless to say. And when I say there's a lot of tool sets, we have conversations with people day in, day out. And the first question is, I have tool sets that support my clients, but I've had a hard time either articulating the message or I don't even know where to start. So those are some very just high level conversations that we have. So we want to help you start, so to speak. So with that being said, I'm going to launch the first question. Give me just a second. So if everybody could chime in and help me address and answer some of these, that would be awesome. So considering, and while you're doing that, I'm going to try to speak a little bit, and then I'm going to intro two other individuals that I've got on the line with me, and then we're going to get the conversation moving. So there's a lot of places we can start, tons of tool sets that are in the world today. It seems like every quote unquote vendor or solution partner, whatever you want to call us, everybody has a different shtick these days. And so starting is tough. So the first question, are you comfortable talking with your clients about cybersecurity? And this is the part where I'm going to intro my two counterparts here. So Steve Sims is on the line with us. He is our Vice President of Security. He is also our CISO. I also have Justin Fox on the line. He's our Senior Director of Product Development, and he also owns all of our systems development teams here at Green Cloud. So I'm going to publish this and share the results. So a lot of folks do feel like they are comfortable, obviously positioning your clients regarding their security needs, some of which probably not so much. So Steve, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you. And, well, there we go. And so Steve, do you mind talking to us a little bit about the current landscape? Where can we start, and what do you see out there?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, JP. I'm pleasantly surprised by the results of that poll. To see such a high percentage of participants that are comfortable having that conversation is great, and something that we hope to continue improving on as we make both our current partners and our prospective partners more comfortable in talking about it. But I think a security discussion isn't complete without throwing a little bit of FUD out there. We try to do as little of that as possible, but it is definitely worth knowing what the current landscape looks like out there with regards to threats. It's kind of hard not to know and understand what that looks like, because it seems like there is a cyber event in the news every single day or multiple times throughout the day. And so I've just given a small list of items here that we've seen over the last couple of weeks and months. The U.S. Census Bureau, for those of you that didn't see it over the weekend, we found out that the U.S. Census Bureau was hit earlier this year with some malicious compromise. Same with the U.S. State Department, which happened to be actually found by the DoD and impacted an unknown number of things. But luckily, the State Department came back and said, hey, it's not impacting any of the efforts we have going on in Afghanistan or any of the current efforts with regards to State Department missions. So it's good to be aware of those kinds of things going on. I don't know how many of you follow the kind of crypto side of things, but the Poly Network crypto exchange that was hit recently was a $650 million breach. Somebody found a bug in the way that transactions were handled within this crypto exchange, gained access to a whole lot of people's wallets, and pulled essentially $650 million worth of Ethereum out of those accounts. The interesting thing here is, once the bug was found, once he had Poly Network's attention, he gave all of the Ethereum back, directed all of that back to the wallets that they came from. And interestingly enough, Poly Network actually offered this guy a security architect, security researcher role at Poly Network to help them to further secure their systems. So an interesting turn of events there. Some of you might say it's a trap. You might be right. We'll see what comes of that. But as we are all very aware of, really 2 or 3 of these, print nightmare. I'm sure all of you are running around trying to find servers to disable print spoolers on, and trying to minimize the impact of the Microsoft vulnerability in print spooler services, as well as the Kaseya impact that it had on a lot of MSPs, as well as SolarWinds, 2 big tools that MSPs use to manage their customer environments. And so we're all fully aware of the impact that this can have in an environment. And again, it's just good to know the current landscape. We've all heard about the Colonial Pipeline and the Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities as well. These are all just reasons why security is at top of mind, and why we need to really have a plan to move forward in a way to navigate that path on the way to secure.
Yeah. Hey, and Steve, real quick, and I think this is a great point to probably bring up and jump in. And I'm going to launch another question while you're talking as well. But address the current, if you would, I guess if you could start with a framework, where would you advise folks to start? And everybody, while he is chatting, here we go. I will see about question number 2.
In some cases, we are limited in the business that we do, or the business that our customers do. We have regulations and requirements forced on us, right? NIST is obviously, and ISO as well, are obviously two of the big standards organizations that are, the goal is to prepare and provide guidance to organizations on how to better secure their environment. And it gives very specific recommendations or requirements on how to make that happen. And all of these compliance requirements, compliance frameworks that you see here are actually based on, for the most part, NIST and ISO as a framework or as a basis to their compliance requirements. So HIPAA, PCI DSS, obviously based very heavily on the NIST capabilities, SOX and GLBA, same story there. So really, you're forced down a path of where you need to remain compliant and where you need to stay. Obviously, as MSPs, our customers are going to drive that. They're going to have those requirements within their own organizations, and then we need to be familiar with those, right? But we're kind of forced down that path. Luckily for us, sorry, go ahead, JP.
No, I was just going to say, it's interesting, if I am sharing my screen correctly, as everybody can hopefully see, there's a lot of folks, that are adhering to the NIST standards, right? Some are falling under others. Obviously, there's heavy under CIS, but believe it or not, a lot of folks don't know. Right. So interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the whole reason for having this conversation, is just to try to guide someone down the path of understanding and knowing which direction to go. Obviously, Steve, there's a ton of compliance. Yeah, go ahead, Justin.
I just one of the things here with this screen, and two, with the feedback that JP just talked about, which I think illustrates, it's confusing. The same slide that JP shared earlier, it's confusing, but it's important to know that, starting with a NIST or a CIS top 18, a lot of these are interrelated and apply to each other. So if you meet a certain control off of NIST as the framework you're going with, you can actually meet a lot of the regulatory controls for multiple things. Like you said, HIPAA and PCI, right? Very focused on NIST. So if you're meeting NIST framework or using that, you get the benefit of being able to say that what you're doing can help with HIPAA and PCI regulatory requirements for your customers. So it's really, and I think that's part of the importance of establishing a framework that you're working from when you're having those cybersecurity discussions. You can't, you don't have to pick multiple. You can pick one and then just understand it and how it can help you through a lot of this list, with your customers.
Yeah, and what I was just going to ask for both your inputs. I had a conversation with a partner out west over dinner this week, and it came up with, well, how do we translate all of these frameworks to what is important for the client? They're obviously some of them are driven by compliance and they kind of get it. Others don't have a clue. How would you advise a managed services company to help articulate that to a client? I mean, do you feel like a good infographic is good, and that's a good representation of how standards equal different security things, or what's your thoughts there? And by the way, does it equal security?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing and the thing that makes it really difficult is that even though we have all of those standards and we have all of those requirements that we have to follow, just because you're compliant with one of them doesn't mean that you're fully secure within your environment. There's a lot of opportunities to provide evidence that might meet a control within all of those compliance requirements. But the evidence doesn't necessarily make your environment more secure. It just means you check the box within a compliance requirement, right? So it's incredibly important to understand that, you know, your job as someone securing a customer environment or your own environment doesn't end when you check all the boxes for that compliance standard that you're following. You know, there's still a due diligence process in making sure that you are and you do have a secure environment. And part of, and thank you, JP, part of the questions that we get asked all the time is, how do I even start? First of all, how do I get there? How do I get going down that path? And so we've put together kind of a five-step process. And what you're going to notice is, this slide is completely vague, and that's by design, because you know, what works for us as Green Cloud Defense, what works for us as an organization with specific risk appetite, with specific goals, with specific priorities as a business, is not going to work for every organization. We work alongside our MSP partners that might have a healthcare focus or a retail focus, or maybe they're just, you know, two guys in a truck, so to speak, and they're just out there solving IT and security problems within their local area, and trying to do the best that they can in that environment. And that's you know, each of those organizations are going to have a completely different risk appetite and a completely different set of priorities. So it's important to understand that the steps and the information that we provide here is really just a guiding light, so to speak. You know, something to say, hey, if you're going to look at this, you know, if you're going to be going in this direction, maybe you should be aware of these things and have a plan as you navigate through this path. And it's really there just to show, you know, a very vague, a very wide berth. And the biggest thing is, and you've heard us mention the CIS Top 18 controls, but they just released a new version in March of this year. And that version actually has an admin guide or a user guide along with it, which is kind of appropriate, right? The more difficult, the more confusing it gets, the more documents you need to tell you how to use it, right? But one big thing that it does say is, it doesn't matter which framework, which path you choose to go down on your path to secure it. And I'm paraphrasing here, so anybody who's a stickler for exact verbiage, I am not going to hit that. But if you have you know, a myriad of options in front of you, the important thing to do is not just to sit there stagnant. The important thing is to start with a framework. Choose that framework and stick to it, and make it meet the needs of your business, and make the business improve and the security improve within your organization by choosing a framework. And the important thing is to start.
Yeah, and so that's a great question. Actually, a book I'm reading talks about that. Just start, right? But at the end of the day, I'm going to launch into the third question. While everybody's answering this, I want to ask you, put you on the spot, Steve. How do you reiterate and how do you search for ways to improve? Do you seek outside counsel? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. That's an opportunity, right? There's, you know, as you go through this, you choose your framework, you self-assess. Part of that self-assessment is going to have some output. You can use that output of that self-assessment to see if the framework that you've chosen has met the needs that you have, right? Then you take that output and you develop a plan based on that output. You implement it. You're going to have output of that. You're going to have vulnerability scans. You're going to have a pen test. You're going to have a completed compliance checklist where you're checking off those boxes because you have chosen that framework, and you're checking off those boxes, and maybe you missed one. There's your chance to iterate and improve. You have direct output from all of these steps to turn into an improvement process. And part of that improvement, to JP's point, is, hey, maybe I need to go out, and I don't have the expertise in-house. Maybe I need to go out and find somebody to help me out. Maybe it's, hey, I need to go find and hire a security expert to bring into my own organization, and build a team behind that. Maybe that answer is, hey, I'm going to outsource this completely. I want to shift that risk over to someone else and shift that liability. I don't want to take that on myself because I'm not an expert. Let me go ahead and shift that over to somebody who has that team. You know, that output is going to drive some of those improvement opportunities.
Well, and I think in a valid point I'll bring up, I was in a recent conversation with somebody that was being audited by a fairly large medical institution. This customer obviously supported this very large medical institution, and the question came up of well, what happens if we're all not buttoned up per se? And I said, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What is a bad thing is if you're not buttoned up and you don't do anything about it. Seeking that outside counsel for advice is obviously a very good thing. Interesting. On question number 3, though, your customers believe you're already taking care of their security needs. I would think most people would say yes, they did. I think that in this day and age, though, I think for all of us, managed service companies, partners of managed service companies, it's also important for us to educate our clients, letting them know that the risk landscape, it's an ever-changing and ever-fluid deal these days. I mean, this day is going to look drastically different than August 26th of 2022. And therefore, we have to be able to adapt and kind of pivot in a very professional but very tactful manner in this day and age. Would you agree to that, Steve, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to be smart about it and iterate and improve, right? Get better every day. You constantly have to be reviewing what you're doing. Frameworks are changing. The goalposts are moving, if you will, right? With regulatory, especially as the threat landscape changes, as new threats evolve, that type of stuff is going to move the goalposts on us all, really, as businesses. And it's understanding. I think Steve has said it a couple of times, right? What's your risk appetite? What's the customer's risk appetite? And then also, that iterate and improve on your plan is, sometimes you can't bite everything off that maybe you need to do as part of your first self-assessment. So part of your plan is how do you iterate that in and get better over time to make sure you got a better security posture and you're following the framework, meeting the framework controls that you've chosen. So that's all important, and iterating is very big. In getting better.
Good. Yeah, right on. So we've kind of talked a little bit about picking a framework, right? Review with your clients what that looks like, how you get there. Obviously, work backwards with the goals of the business and figure out what gaps you can help fill. In the spirit of time, because I know that we do have some questions coming in. Steve, walk us through what are some good things, what are some good tangible things that we can leave with these folks before we get into the Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. As JP mentioned, this is going to be recorded. We'll send all of this forward in an email. But if I could have you take a look at these really 4 things or four categories of things, this would be the best place to start, in my opinion. The CIS Top 18. This is the Center for Internet Security. They have addressed what they consider to be the top 18 critical controls that an organization can put in place to make themselves more secure. The first 6 are meant to address something like 85. I don't know what the actual percentage is that they're claiming meets today, but something upwards of 80 to 85% of all risk in an environment can be resolved by implementing 6 of the first 6 of the 18 controls. So that's a pretty incredible amount. If I told you 1/3 of the things that you have to do to secure an environment could solve 85% of your risk, I think you'd be all about it. So take a look at this. If you haven't looked at the CIS Top 18, formerly known as the SANS Top 20 or the CIS Top 20, these things will put you on that path to secure. Additionally, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration or agency, which is a department of the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the U.S. CERT, are offering bulletins for you to, yes, that's a lot of words, JP. I
admire a lot of words. I don't ask me to repeat it, but okay.
These folks are charged by the federal government in the U.S. to advise us and inform us about how we can respond to things like ransomware. And CISA just put out a really solid ransomware bulletin that discusses how you can meet it head on, how you can avoid it, and how you can kind of address that. This next one is really about just having visibility, know what's coming, know what we are doing to protect our critical infrastructure and our nation's cybersecurity, and know what's coming. Because, as many of you might know, GDPR is a major compliance strategy within the EU. And I firmly believe that we are not far from similar legislation here in the U.S. It has to happen following Colonial Pipeline, the breach that occurred there. President of the United States offered an executive order talking about how we improve the nation's cybersecurity. I highly recommend, if you really want to understand where we're going from a cybersecurity perspective as a nation, from a federal government perspective, this document will outline that. And then when we're talking about local security, local guidance on how to improve, your small business administration and your small business development centers are charged with helping small businesses, of which 60+% of small businesses go out of business following a cyber incident. The SBA is charged with reducing that number. And because of that, they have worked with the FCC, the CISA, the CIS to ensure that we have guidance and recommendation for small businesses. And it's not in geek speak, it's not in tech speak, it's in a way that business owners of small businesses can truly know and understand how to improve their environment. And if you, as an MSP or as someone providing services to small businesses, if you can take a look at these and guide them to that, it will be helpful for your business and just the overall security of your customer base.
Yeah, that's a great list, Steve.
There you go.
And I know we're kind of coming up a little bit on time here, JP. I thought I'd squeeze in a few of the couple questions that have been posted in. So we'll kind of drop a couple of these in if we can address them in the time. One of the ones I wanted to
let's do it.
Talk about here, Steve, this is for you. When you recommend or reference the CIS controls, do you recommend aligning customers against the implementation group versus doing them all?
So that's part of that self-assessment. This isn't just a self-assessment of your business. That 5-step process is something you can take to them as well. So as you're trying to align the CIS controls with your customers' particular risk appetite and the environment that they control, doing that self-assessment within their environment is going to help you to understand exactly which controls you need to implement. There are things like a gap analysis and doing those self-assessment questionnaires that things like PCI and HIPAA High Tech and these various standards and regulations, they provide you an ability to do a self-assessment questionnaire based on those compliance. You can utilize those to really align against the particular controls that apply to that business, because every customer's business is going to be different. What the CIS controls do, it's not a rigid platform that you have to stick to, you have to start at step 1 and move step 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just a framework that says, hey, this is how you could go from 0 to 100, in this case, 0 to 18, right? Or 1 to 18. But it doesn't mean you can't jump all over the place. You can hit control 1, control 2, control 10, depending on what the risk appetite and what the requirements are within that organization. And you may not have a need to align with any of the controls at all, but it's going to be on a case-by-case basis for that particular customer. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and I would find it hard to believe that they wouldn't have a need to meet any of those controls. Just some of them are, quite frankly, I would expect a lot of the attendees today are meeting some of those controls, right? Because some of the controls talk about data protection, which is most everyone's going to have data protection solved or implemented, I should say, for their customer. So that's pretty neat. Got one real quick, that I'll answer. Is Green Cloud FedRAMP certified or considering it? We are not FedRAMP certified and not considering it at this time. That's kind of the pinnacle of all certifications out there. Not something that we get asked about a whole lot. Don't have a lot of partners operating in that space with that requirement. One more question maybe we'll throw out here before we kind of wrap up, because we're kind of at time is, again, Steve, what can you address some of the core differences between a security framework versus a privacy framework?
Yeah, absolutely. A security framework is how to maintain and operate an environment securely. And these frameworks are giving you, for the most part, technical controls and associated policies with maintaining the security. And if you look at the CIA triad, and I bring this up often because it's a core tenet of security, but confidentiality and integrity, those being two of the core tenets of security, having the confidentiality piece align is important for the security of the environment, right? And these frameworks are built to address those in various ways. Now, privacy frameworks are built specifically to maintain the privacy of an organization, the privacy of an individual, protecting things like PHI and PII, and maintaining the privacy, that same thing, the confidentiality of an individual's data or stuff that relates to that individual. Security frameworks, in my mind, are more of a technical control on how to secure the environment as a whole, whereas privacy is how you deal with the data that is attached to an entity, whether that be, you know, an organization, a customer, an individual, or whatever it might be. Maintaining their particular data that pertain to them versus maintaining the security and the confidentiality and integrity of that environment as a whole. I think we could have a 2-hour discussion, particularly about security versus privacy. But unfortunately, we don't have the time in that today.
Yeah,
reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer and have that discussion.
The relationship of a lot of that. Some of the, you know, it's kind of like compliance and security, right? They interrelate and with each other, but they don't equal each other, right? Same thing with security and privacy. So a lot of overlap, but they're not the same. So,
yep. Well, I think it goes without saying, from all of us, you know, here at Green Cloud, Justin, Steve, myself, we really appreciate everybody jumping on today, spending 30 some odd minutes with us. This, once again, just for everybody's benefit, for those who joined late, this has been recorded. We will email that out to you. Please send questions to your respective Green Cloud channel managers, account managers, etc. We will triage, get those answered to you. But we do appreciate it. Also be on the lookout for the survey that's coming. And hopefully everybody found this beneficial, picking up a couple nuggets, you know. So Justin, Steve, thanks so much for sharing, and hope everybody has a fantastic afternoon and a great Thursday, and have a great weekend coming up. Thanks again.